Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our student town hall as part of our Back to Mac series. My name is Susan Ty, McMaster's Provost and Vice President Academic. It's my sincere pleasure to host this event today. Though we are gathering virtually, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that McMaster University stands on the traditional territory shared between the Haudenosaunee and Mississauga nations and is protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Over the past 2 weeks, students, staff, and faculty from across McMaster have submitted nearly 200 questions about our return to campus this academic year. We held our first campus-wide student town hall on June the 17th. We heard from many of you about how much they appreciated this event and the information that was shared. So that's why we're here today with a second student town hall to talk about the fall term. And we are getting so excited to see you back on campus. Everyone here at McMaster is working to make this fall term a safe and engaging experience so we can get back to all that we've missed. So we are focused on making decisions that are evidence-based, agile, and responsive to changing government and public health advice. And that puts health and safety and well-being of our community first. So this is a really important point that I really want to emphasize, that we really do feel that we need to be making our decisions based on evidence-based and also being agile to various changing conditions. We will do our best today to answer the most frequently asked and highest upvoted questions, as well as cover questions on a variety of topics. The sli.do platform will remain open during this event, and so you can add your questions by using the URL and the code on the YouTube frame and in the video description. Though we will not be able to answer all of the questions today, we will take these questions back and ensure that we have answers provided on the Back to Mac website. And we will continue to update the website with COVID-19 updates. Thank you to all our leaders from across McMaster who have joined us today to answer your questions. So our panel today consists of Dr. Paula Byrne, who's Dean and Vice President, Faculty of Health Sciences, Sean Van Kunit, our Associate Vice President, Students and Learning and Dean of Students, Dr. Kim Dai, Acting Vice Provost Faculty, Dr. Arig Al-Sheba, Associate Vice President, Equity and Inclusion, and Dr. Doug Welsh, who's our Vice Provost and Dean of Graduate Students. I'm so pleased that they could be here with us today. So we'll get right started. And our first question that was by far the most upvoted question by students is McMaster planning on having a convocation for 2020 and 2021 grads in the upcoming school year? So the answer to that is fall 2021 convocation planning is currently underway with the hope of celebrating in person this November, although the celebration might still look and feel a little bit different than the past. We will continue to build a contingency plan in the event that any or all restrictions change. More details will be released in the fall, and graduating students should continue to monitor their @McMaster email address. And as for our 2020 graduates, we are also continuing to explore how those celebrations might look and when they will likely occur in 2022. Okay, our next question is related to the winter term, and this came up yesterday and gained a lot of popularity. So we wanted to address it right off the top of our student session today. So winter classes seem to be in person. How sturdy is this choice? Many students may consider a work term instead of if they cannot be mostly insured for in-person learning. So I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Kim Dai to address that question. Kim.
Great, thank you so much, Susan. I do recognize that all of our students are making difficult decisions right now in respect to their safety, but also in terms of how they want to engage with the McMaster community. Right now, as you have seen, all of our winter course modalities are listed as to be announced on Mosaic or TBA. And that is with the expectation that they will be in person and rooms have been scheduled for all of these classes. We are optimistic about the winter term, knowing that we have the ability to adjust to virtual options if necessary, though we do expect that to be a less likely outcome. Students should continue to prepare to make arrangements to live in Hamilton or to commute into the city for their classes for winter 2022, based upon this optimistic approach. And we expect most of our teaching and learning will return to being in person. We plan to finalize the modalities for winter courses on Mosaic, where you can see it in the middle of the semester. Though we're planning for a return to in-person teaching, learning, and all student life activities in winter 2022, we all know throughout the pandemic that it's impossible to predict exactly what's going to happen and where we're going to be in terms of the number of cases, vaccinations, and other health and safety measures. We will continue, as we have been, to daily monitor the pandemic and work with our local and provincial public health, as well as our McMaster experts, to continually assess our plans and reevaluate if necessary. I will note just a couple of other things. McMaster has invested in incorporating Echo 360 lecture capture tools into most of our largest lecture halls on campus. So this means that we're really well prepared and resilient in case something does happen. This means that if you're ill and you need to stay away from campus, you can still engage in those in-person courses, and that will keep all of our campus community safe and healthy. We also do anticipate that there will be some options for virtual components and blended courses, more than in previous years, but that's because we're continuing to learn what teaching modalities work best, and we're really discovering how technology enhances teaching and learning, but doesn't replace it. So overall, Susan, we're definitely optimistic and we're planning for in-person for winter.
That's great. Thanks, Kim, for that clarity. Okay, our next question is for Sean Van Koenen. And we had a lot of questions that came in around vaccinations and whether they would be mandatory on campus. So I'm first going to ask Sean to speak about this in relationship to residences, and then I will have a follow-up here. So Sean, the question for you is, why are only students living in residence required to be vaccinated? Other students and faculty will also be in congregate settings for in-person classes and labs. Over to you.
Thanks, Susan. Well, and actually congregate settings are defined as those where people are living in close proximity to each other and spend extended periods of time together. And so that's why we've required the mandated vaccines in residence. We've also looked at the varsity athletic environment. So student athletes also spend a lot of time together. They're on the road together. They often are spending time in hotels together and that type of thing. So vaccines will also be mandated for those student athletes. So we've worked very closely with public health on trying to establish this protocol for student athletes and for students staying in residence.
Okay, that is great. Thank you so much, Sean. Okay, and then the second part of this question is, will McMaster make vaccinations mandatory for everyone? And I think this is a really important step to ensure proper health and safety. So to answer that is, I would like to say that 93% of our staff and 94% of our students surveyed have indicated that they've already received or intend to receive at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine before September. And for staff members, 91 have also indicated that they plan to be fully vaccinated before the start of the term. So this really shows how seriously our students and employees are taking the need for vaccinations, as this exceeds the average vaccination rate for people in Ontario. And this is excellent news. The situation regarding vaccine requirements is fluid and evolving across Ontario. Throughout the pandemic, we have continually updated our university policies and procedures, and provincial guidelines have changed based on the availability as vaccines have increased. So what I can tell you is we are committed to having a safe campus community and carefully monitoring this rapidly changing situation, and having ongoing discussions on key issues around this. And we will continue to be nimble and flexible. All right, so one of the next most upvoted questions was around in-person club events, and we have received a lot of similar questions about this as well. So I will ask Sean, our Dean of Students, to actually address this question. And the question is, Sean, when will clubs have the opportunity to host in-person events? And when will guidelines for in-person club events be released? Clubs must plan in advance.
Great, thanks, Susan. And yeah, one of our goals since early on in this calendar year has been to aim for a fall where we can inject as much normalcy as possible. And we know how important student events and club activities are. And so we will have guidelines. They could be released as early as this week. I think our overall approach is to, I'll say, walk before we run. And in that, I mean, it's not going to be back to 100% type of club activities that we would have had pre-COVID, but we want to focus on enabling events that align with the provincial regulations. So at current, it's a maximum 25 people indoors, 100 outdoors. We want to focus on on-campus events. So at this point, we should look at not organizing off-campus events. There are activities that are deemed higher risk, those that involve travel, those that are off-campus, those that involve alcohol, that I think at this point, we want to see how the fall term evolves. But we will release guidelines hopefully later this week, early next week. And we want to enable these events to begin in September. So that right off the bat, starting in the fall term, and you'll see that there will be events, Welcome Week being really our biggest student event of the year. We will be having some in-person activities, and I'll touch on that in a later question this morning. That we will start with Welcome Week at the beginning of September, and following that, there will be the ability to have student club events through the fall term. And the MSU is also on board with this approach, and they may have further guidance as well as the term evolves.
Okay, that's great to know, Sean. And I know that it's a big question because it is so important that we have these activities occurring for our students. It's a great way to meet people outside of your classroom activities. So, all right, the next question is really around the fall term classes and how we have made decisions around in-person versus online course components. And so I actually have two questions for you, Dr. Dye, related to this. So McMaster states they're following a hybrid approach, but there seems to be far more online only classes. Is there a chance that these will be converted to in-person? And then the second part of this question is, I do not have a single course in person this fall. Is this going to change? Will my tutorials be in person? So I'll let you tackle those two very important questions.
Thank you, Susan. Absolutely. These are very important questions. I understand how these decisions impact the student experience, and I understand that we all want to get back as much in person as possible. Our planning has been made so that we're able to be flexible for, as we've said already, an ever-changing environment. So we've scheduled about 50% of our course components to be in person, with an emphasis on the tutorials, the labs, smaller hands-on experiences. All these decisions have been made to keep our students, staff, and instructors safe. It might help to explain just a little bit about how we made these decisions. We really took a best pedagogy approach to our decisions. We reached out to the associate deans and program leads to identify which course components were most important to get back in person. And these are predominantly, again, those hands-on experiences. When students get into studios and labs, they're working together, they are applying their knowledge, but also smaller lectures and seminars where the discussion and discourse is really important to the learning. We didn't apply a single threshold, such as more than 150 students remote, less than 150 students in person, but rather we looked at each course and reflected on not only this past year, but previous years as well, to identify how instructors teach well in the different modalities, but of course, importantly, how students learn well in those different modalities. This term, we aimed to keep what worked well remotely in the remote environment in order to make our entire campus safer. We also know that much of learning happens outside of the classroom. I've been saying this to students for over 17 years, that not all of the learning happens in the lecture hall. It happens when you collaborate and you co-study, you're working with your peers, you're having discussions with instructors and TAs. So we really do encourage students to take advantage of all of those small group in-person activities on campus. To get to your other question, to be respectful of our students, once we indicated that a course was going to be online or virtual, we know that students made decisions based upon that information. So the vast majority will not be switching to in-person because we don't want to cause any challenges or disruptions to that planning. In rare circumstances, there might be some switches where there is a new possibility to bring a course in person, but the instructors are all aware that if a course was originally scheduled to be online or virtual, they must provide that option and opportunity for students, even if other students choose to come to the in-person opportunity. So the good news, I think, is that vaccines are working. And the closer we get to all of our students being fully vaccinated, the safer our teaching spaces are, which means the more likely that we're going to stay on campus. I recognize and empathize with students who feel disappointed with either too much in person or too little in person. And I apologize for that frustration that you're feeling. Every university is making decisions based upon their local context. McMaster is a large population on a small campus, and it sits in the middle of a dynamic city. So we're taking into consideration the public health of our university and local community. We have many people commuting to Hamilton to work and learn, and the decisions that we've made are in the interest of protecting all of those communities.
Great, thank you very much, Kim. And we do actually have a live question here. And the question is, will this town hall meeting recording be available for viewing later? And so the answer to that question is yes. So it will be available on the YouTube site after the event. And of course, you can receive more details related to this on the Back to Mac website. So don't worry, we are recording this event. Okay, so our next question here is around our accessing libraries and study spaces on campus. And the question is, what will be the process of assessing study spaces? Will students be required to book in advance or simply be turned away if maximum capacity is reached? So I can tell you even earlier this week, I've had some back and forth correspondence with various folks from our library. And so what I want to say is that McMaster University Libraries will be open to the community as of September. And so Mills and Thode libraries will reopen on September the 7th. And the Health Sciences Library will be reopening the following week on September the 13th. And operating hours will be posted on the library's websites once they've been finalized. And I know we've been going back and forth to think about what would work best for the whole entire community. And we've been using information that we have that's available to us on when people really use the libraries and the timing. So with respect to what's actually going to happen at this point for our planning purposes, it's expected that there will be no physical distancing in the libraries. So almost all spaces will be open, but masks will be required in all McMaster buildings, including in the libraries. Now there will be individual study space at all libraries, and that will be available on a first come, first served basis. Group study spaces at Mills and Thode libraries will be open in September and available through the library's online booking system, as it was in the case of pre-COVID. So initially, the Health Sciences Library group study rooms will remain closed, but when they reopen, the booking process will be posted on the library website. So again, you can look forward to having access to the libraries. And again, we will make sure that they are safe places for you to be able to study and do your work. All right, moving along. So we've had many questions from students around McMaster's safety measures for COVID-19 and how variants may affect the fall term. So I would like to invite Dr. Paul O'Byrne to discuss a few of these questions with us. And again, I'd really like to say that we are so blessed to have such a strong and well-respected Faculty of Health Science. So we've been really utilizing our experts here at McMaster to help us with our planning, so it's evidence-based. Okay, so Dr. O'Byrne, what are the risks of the Delta variant, and how could this impact the fall term?
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Tai, and good morning, everybody. There's no doubt at all that the identification of the Delta variant has added to the complexity and challenges of managing this pandemic, and that's because this variant is about 50% more infectious than, for example, the Alpha variant, and as a result of that, it can be spread much more easily in any environment. And that, of course, is particularly true for unvaccinated individuals. It is, however, extremely important to stress that the vaccines we have available to us in Canada do provide really excellent protection against the Delta variant for severe infections and severe outcomes of those infections. And indeed, even very good protection from mildly symptomatic disease and even from asymptomatic colonization with this variant. There's also, I think, very good evidence that fully vaccinated individuals are at a much lower risk of transmitting this virus. The bottom line is that the Delta variant has a major impact on the community at large, and as well as the McMaster community, and we will all very heavily depend on the percentage of vaccinated individuals within the community. This is because vaccinated people have very little to fear from this particular virus. The effectiveness of the vaccines against all variants of the virus is the rationale as to why the province is planning to waive the requirement for physical distancing once 75% of the eligible population are fully vaccinated. And McMaster is planning to follow this public health guidance. So the combination of indoor masking, high vaccination rates, and other measures such as improved ventilation will keep all of our students, our staff, and our faculty safe. And I cannot stress enough that the best approach to managing this epidemic is to get vaccinated. After consulting with experts in infectious disease and local and provincial public health authorities, the arrangements and precautions are being made now. This will provide a safe environment for learners, staff, and faculty. Of course, as new evidence is generated, we will need to and we shall continue to adapt and evolve these directives. The health and safety of all members of the McMaster community are the university's very top priority.
That's great. And okay, so now I'm going to be devil's advocate a bit here, Dr. O'Byrne. What happens if we have an outbreak? What kinds of things are we McMaster doing as a community to handle this type of scenario if it happens?
So when the university is initially notified that a student or a faculty member or staff member is identified as being a confirmed case of COVID, the affected area within the university setting is disinfected, and this is completed in compliance with the public health guidelines. In addition, public health will do the contact tracing to identify individuals that may have been in close contact and may be at risk. And public health will contact these individuals directly. It's really important, however, to stress that faculty, staff, and students should continue to self-monitor for symptoms using, for example, the Ontario COVID-19 self-assessment tool, and get tested even if they experience only the mildest of symptoms. And if the test is positive and you've been on campus, it's important that you report this through Mosaic. Now, these protocols have been in place since the very beginning of this pandemic, and very fortunately, McMaster's campus has experienced no outbreaks of COVID, despite critical operations and teaching continuing to take place on campus. As I've already stressed, Dr. Tai, the best approach without any doubt, to reducing outbreaks is to get vaccinated.
That's great. Thank you, Dr. O'Byrne. It's the message is really important. And again, we really appreciate your expertise and all our colleagues in the Faculty of Health Science for helping us with this important planning process. Okay, my next question here, we have a live question and it's related to class sizes. And so I'm going to ask Dr. Kim Dye to come back, please. And so the question is, if class sizes are over 25 students, will the classes still run indoors or will they be switched to online due to public health guidelines?
Thanks, Susan. So right now we know we're all in the current step 3 that Ontario has indicated. And in step 3, we're required to adhere to that 25 indoor person capacity. And I'm sure that's what the question is alluding to. So yes, we would be required to adhere to those public health guidelines, and we're well prepared to make that switch to virtual delivery if we were required to do so. As you know, vaccination rates, as Dr. O'Byrne just indicated, those vaccination rates are part of this provincial decision. As McMaster ambassadors, we can all continue to support with respect and education the uptake of vaccinations in our communities. I think we are all well placed to do that as McMaster community members, and that will make our entire province safer and allow all of us to move out of step 3, which is good for our campus and good for the whole province.
That's great. Thank you so much. And thank you to our live questions. We do appreciate them. And again, we'll do our best to answer them as they appear on the sli.do platform. Okay, so the next question I have is, will McMaster be offering free asymptomatic testing for students and staff? And so what we've actually been doing is we've been working with a group of McMaster experts on what the best testing protocols are based on scientific evidence and advice of public health. And so at this point, the majority of testing has and will continue to be provided by Hamilton Public Health. And in the event that there's an outbreak, a testing protocol is being finalized so the university can respond quickly. And I just also did want to come back to the point that Dr. O'Byrne had mentioned. Throughout the pandemic, we've had many people who have been coming to campus daily to conduct teaching, especially in the clinical setting, to do research and to really keep the campus running. And so, you know, we do have a successful track record at this point in time. There's no question with more people coming to campus, we need to be more cognizant of this, but we actually haven't had any outbreaks on campus. And we hope that given our current protocols that we can continue to avoid this situation. Another question is, will McMaster continue to require indoor masking if the provincial requirement changes? And so, as already noted, currently masks are required, and the latest information from the Ministry of Colleges and Universities is that we expect mask guidelines to stay in place for post-secondary institutions. It's possible that this policy may change during the fall term, and certainly if it does, we will update our practices. But at this point, we will continue to put health and safety of our community first, and we'll carefully assess any potential changes to the policy in collaboration with public health and our McMaster experts. So students should expect to continue to wear masks. They will be required indoors and outdoors where there is a distance of 2 meters cannot be maintained. Okay, our next question here is actually for Dr. Kim Dye and Dr. Doug Welsh. And so we're going to get a perspective from both an undergraduate perspective and a graduate perspective. And the question for the two of you is, how will we be accommodated if we are not able to attend a class in person and if that class is mandatory? So Kim, how about you start, and Doug, then you can follow up. Thank you.
Perfect, great, thank you very much. Yeah, so some of our programs have required courses for program completion that are that have been indicated that they are in person. If you need to enroll in a course that's required for your program, but you're unable to attend in person this term for any reason, we really strongly recommend that you contact your faculty's associate dean's office or your program office and speak to an academic advisor for support. In some circumstances, you might be required to defer the current course until another term. Many of our large lecture halls have been upgraded with Echo 360 lecture capture, which is great. This allows us some flexibility for students to attend in a blended way. In such instances, there will also be multiple ways of participating. But I would not assume that that is going to be true in all of in-person courses, because again, some have some required hands-on experiences for completion of your program. All of the course details should be appearing on Avenue to Learn within the next couple of weeks. For courses that are mandatory for your program completion that you cannot attend in person, we again suggest that you contact an academic advisor. Advisors are here to help you to succeed, and they are incredibly generous and empathetic to what you're going through. So please do not hesitate to reach out to them.
Thank you, Kim. The situation at the graduate level is fairly similar. Important differences are that the programs themselves generally have their own lecture space, and consequently can make decisions on without having to make bookings in advance like we have to at the undergraduate level. There is a huge variety of graduate work that is done. Some of the health sciences graduate programs, for instance, deferring a term might not get you in the right position in the cycle. And so if you aren't able to attend in person and do physical therapy, for instance, you might have to defer a whole year. But generally the case is that if you are unable to attend, your best bet, as Kim said, is to contact your graduate chair and your associate dean and ask the specific question about your requirements and how they would best be dealt with in terms of being able to either learn at a distance or perhaps take up the course in a future term, in a future academic year if necessary. So there's no single answer to the question, but I think you'll find it very easy to reach the people who can give you an answer for your specific arrangements.
Yeah, thank you both. And really, we encourage you, if you do have questions, to reach out to your professor, your instructor, to your department representatives. We're here to help you. We want you to be successful. And so if you have any questions, please reach out so that they can really help guide you through that process. We actually have another live question. So I'm going to ask Kim to come back here for a moment. And the question is one allowed to take virtual classes or tutorials in a library space, if possible, to get a personal space on time, i.e. a virtual class is 10 minutes after a live one? So that question is a good one. It's obviously somebody's thinking about scheduling and planning. So we're happy to hear that. But Kim, over to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Somebody's looking at their schedule. And whereas a couple of years ago, they tried to figure out how to run from one end of campus to the other, now they're trying to figure out how to get from in-person to virtual. And it's a real challenge that needs to be addressed. And in fact, we were addressing this over the past year. We've had students in our clinical programs on campus, and they needed to do those switches from the in-person to the virtual. And we provided, in some cases, classrooms or access to the library to do so. And hearing from them, we found that it worked well for them. They recommended having a headset or earbuds so that they could listen to the conversations. And they found that they were able to participate. If they were comfortable participating orally, they were able to do so. But we also found this past year that participating in chats worked really well and sometimes better for some students. So those spaces will be available in the library to land for those solo study or for dropping in on a virtual class. And we are also increasing the number of spaces that are available outdoors so that students might prefer to land there as well.
Great, thank you so much for addressing that live question. And I'm really glad to hear that people are already thinking about these important matters for their fall term. All right, so the next questions I think are also extremely important. They relate to orientation activities. So I'd like to ask Sean Van Kunit, our Dean of Students, to come back. And really there's a couple of threads to this, these questions, Sean. So I guess first and foremost, what kinds of events will be on campus for orientation week? And so, of course, we've got our first years, but then we also have our second year welcome week. So we have many second year students who have not been on campus. So wondering on what we're planning for our second year students as well. So hoping you can address those questions, Sean.
Thanks, Susan. And yeah, we're happy that we're going to be able to offer some in-person welcome week activities. Earlier in the winter, we weren't sure. Our default position was all online. So starting September 1st, that's the beginning of welcome week, and we're targeting our in-person activities for our first year students on September 5th and 6th. The Student Success Center has been working with different student services and with faculties to develop programming there. Now, you should check out the Student Success Center website. They'll be updating the programming there. And also, first year students, don't forget to register for MacPass on the Oscar Plus website. You need to do that in order to participate in events. For second year students, we also recognize that last year they didn't really have, well, they didn't have at all the traditional, the normal welcome week, given what we were going through last fall. So we're targeting the first or second week of class. So it wouldn't be welcome week during the time of the first year welcome week, but rather when most second year students are back in class and on campus. And so there will be some in-person activities there. In both cases, we're targeting some limited, smaller group activities. So don't expect to have large gatherings, large group activities for welcome week, but there will be the opportunity to connect, to socialize, and to meet your peers. So we're looking forward to that.
Great, that's excellent. Yeah, because it's important that we have these activities really to kick off the fall semester. So I am certainly very happy that we can be offering some of these events in person. So that's great. And I know, Sean, your team has been working really hard to make this happen. Okay, our next question is for Dr. Rieg Al-Sheba. And the question is, what's going to be done in the fall to support Black students and address systematic racism on campus? So Rieg, I'll ask you to tackle that question. Thanks very much for the question.
Thank you, Dr. Tai, and thanks for the question. I think it's a really important one. I'll start by saying that maybe the obvious is that equity, diversity, inclusion are priorities for McMaster. And you know, we know that campus climate and the student experience inside and outside of the classroom is essential to student success. And we know also that certain groups of students experience bias and inequities, and among those are Black students. So we really appreciate the question, and we're pleased to be able to report that there have been quite a number of things that we've been working on. Lots more still to do, but I'll talk about three areas. So in terms of dealing with the issue of inequity systematically, we're focusing on recruitment of Black faculty and staff, the education of all of our faculty and staff on anti-Black racism, and also support for Black students. With respect to the hiring, students may have noticed that the university is invested in hiring a number of exceptional Black faculty, and every faculty, all 6 faculties are almost completed their hiring processes. We also have hired a manager of Black student success, Faith Ogunkoya. who's going to be working with my colleague Sean Van Koonent to oversee the new Black Student Success Center. It's a space where Black students can build community and receive advice and support. Faith will be working with Dr. Claire Warner, who is also a new senior advisor, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism, also reporting through student affairs. And then my team, the Equity Inclusion Office, we've increased our staff to be able to provide education to the community. My colleague Tolulope Ojo is the coordinator for anti-Black racism initiatives, and she runs not only discussion groups, but also is available to provide support groups for students, Black students as well. Tolulope works with the team to deliver anti-Black racism education workshops to the community, and we're also working with faculty on the issue. We have a lot of requests for supporting faculty to address microaggressions in the classroom. So we're really pleased that we're getting that inquiry, and we're supporting faculty to build their capacity. And then on the support side, there are a couple of things I can speak to. The African and Caribbean Faculty Association of McMaster, it's a really important group on campus. They've existed for quite some time. They hold regular meet and greet networking events for Black students. So look out for their communications. They're supporting, we're funding a program that they're supporting, which is a Black student mentor program. And we're also working with the fundraising team at McMaster to increase our scholarships. So we have quite a number of generous alumni and friends who have given thoughtfully so that we can increase the number of scholarships and bursaries to Black students. And so these are just a few of the institutional activities, and there's a lot happening at the departmental level as well. And I'll throw out an email address to you, equity@mcmaster.ca, if you have any questions. Thanks, Dr. Dye.
That is fantastic. And again, I just want to reinforce this is an absolute priority for us. And the office is available for you if you have any questions or any concerns. I think you'll find our supports in place are really helpful and really want to see you be successful. So don't hesitate to reach out. I did also just want to say that we have 300 live viewers with us. So thank you to everyone who's joining us at this moment in time. All right, so Dr. Doug Welsh is here. And he's our Dean of Graduate Students. And we have a question for you, Doug, from one of our MSc students. And the question is, when will class times and locations be released for graduate students?
Thank you, Dr. Tai. It is typical that the graduate courses start usually about a week after the undergraduate courses. And it is common for there to be some changes in people requesting certain courses, registering for certain courses. And this can have an impact on TA assignments for graduate students. So that's a long way to answer that. Usually you're informed by the end of the first week of undergraduate studies of what your schedule will be, but it is typically done that way to adapt so that you have the time available to take the courses. And usually the place where you're taking them is in the program. So it's not, it's usually very convenient. So there's no need to hunt around campus for office space or for lecture space in these cases.
That's great. Good to know. Yes, because I'm sure everyone's anxious to know where they're supposed to be and what time they're supposed to be, where they need to be. So thanks very much for that answer. All right. Our next question, I'm going to ask our Vice Provost faculty to come back, Dr. Kim Dye. And the question for you, Kim, is what happens if you have an in-person class and then you need to isolate because of COVID? What do you do?
Thanks, Dr. Tai. So great question, because it assumes that if you are feeling ill or you've been exposed to COVID, that you're going to isolate. So excellent place to start the question. We do want you to stay home if you have any indication that you are not feeling well, or that you've been in contact with someone with COVID-19, or that you have not passed the screening test that will be available to you. This is important for your health, but also to the safety of our campus and local community, and it's essential for all of us to manage the pandemic. You're also encouraged to seek medical attention for your own health. As Dr. O'Byrne said earlier, faculty, staff, and students should all continue to self-monitor for symptoms using the Ontario COVID-19 self-assessment tool when they come to campus. And we have been doing that throughout the past year. We also want you to get tested, even if you're experiencing only mild symptoms. If you receive a positive test and you have been on campus, you need to report it through Mosaic. In response to that, we can clean spaces, and any provincial tracking and tracing can be conducted. I know that the concern is also, what does that mean for your academic progress? So we also would advise you to contact your instructor or instructors, and they'll be able to advise you on how best to proceed. They don't want you coming to campus if you're not feeling well either, but what you will be able to do will vary a little bit from course to course. Most courses will have a flexible design so that there will be ways of accommodating some missed in-person work. And we do not expect anyone to be academically penalized for abiding by those health and safety guidelines. You should also connect, again, with an academic advisor if you're missing more than a week of classes, because we're concerned about you being able to keep up and missing any essential components.
Great, thank you very much. And again, I would also reiterate the fact that you were thinking about isolating when you're not feeling well is extremely important. So, and that's really what we need to be doing, and following our public health guidelines wherever possible. Okay, our next question is for our Dean of Students, Sean Van Koonen. And Sean, the question for you is, will there be intramurals this fall?
The short answer is yes, there will be intramurals. So again, another important aspect of student life that we want to make happen this fall, and we will make it happen. Athletics and Recreation is actively working on the plan for intramurals. I think you can expect that we won't have the full slate of activities that you might be used to, but they're assessing the facilities, what they can, how much they can do outdoors, because as we know, it's safer to do as much as we can outdoors, what we can do indoors, and trying to assess that against the regulations that are in place. So there will be intramurals this fall.
Excellent. That's fantastic news. That's really great news. All right. So our next question, it's hard to believe we only have about 15 minutes left of this session. I'm not sure where the time has gone. Great questions and great interaction here. So the next question is actually for myself and Dr. Kim Dye. And there's really two parts to this question. So Kim, I'm hoping you can come back. I'll try to tackle the first part, and then maybe you can tackle the second. So the two questions that we've received here are, could virtual winter courses switch to in-person courses? And the second part of the question is, if courses in the winter term are in person and a student is unable to attend in person, will there be an online option available? So what I'd like to start out by saying is that you may recall at the last town hall, we are planning for a return to in-person teaching, learning, and student life activities in the winter 2022 term, while taking advantage, of course, from the lessons learned from the past year and having some remote teaching and learning. So we will continue to ensure our planning is flexible so that we can pivot if necessary due to any changed public health measures. Kim, over to you for the second part of that question.
Great, thank you, Dr. Tai. So as we said at the beginning, right now, all of our course modalities are listed as to be announced, but with the full expectation that they are going to be in person, and we've scheduled classes into rooms according to that plan. So the question, could the virtual courses switch to in-person? We are scheduling for in-person, with the possibility and the ability to switch to virtual if any of the public health guidelines change. So then the second question, if courses in the winter term are in person, so we're assuming that they are, if a student is unable to attend in person, will there be online options available? So we're not going to see as many virtual and online scheduled courses in winter. There will be a few, and you will certainly be able to go in and identify those and choose courses based upon the modality that's being offered. But again, not as many. So I wouldn't count on being able to find 5 courses that fit your program that are offered fully in the online or virtual format. But I do want to bring back the discussion to the fact that McMaster has put an immense amount of planning and effort into embedding the Echo 360 software into our room. I don't have stocks in Echo 360, but it is a very useful tool for capturing lectures, which means that for those lecture halls, they are going to be captured and they will be streamed and shared on Avenue to Learn. And we think that this is an excellent resource as the pandemic continues to unfold, because it allows the flexibility for students to make informed decisions that are best for them and their health and safety, and again, the safety of the community. But it's actually an ongoing plan that we are really invested in as well. We have found over the last year, and many people have known this for many years, students enjoy the flexibility of being able to review a lecture that has been captured. They can review material that they're struggling with. They can review it with their friends and they're co-studying. They can go back to their notes and correct things that they might have missed. So having those captured lectures is absolutely beneficial to all of our students and is an added benefit as we move into the winter term.
That's great. Thank you so much, Kim. And yes, just to reiterate, we've done our best to equip our rooms with the latest technology so that we can have this ability to capture these lectures. So okay, so I have another question here, and this is for Sean Van Kunen, again, our Dean of Students. And the question for you, Sean, is, will the university offer more financial aids to students who are struggling to pay tuition due to the pandemic?
Yeah, we recognize that that there are financial strains on some students to be able to attend university, and so we do have a robust offering of scholarships and bursaries. Of course, there is OSAP for Ontario students. We also have financial aid for out of province and out of country students. We also have work study opportunities where students can earn income on campus. In addition to that, many students might know there are payment plans. If there are some difficulties coming up with all the funds up front, then that's also something that you can investigate. There's a website for students, if you're not aware, AwardSpring, where you can look up different sources of funding that you may have access to. And if there are emergencies, if you're in a real bind, the registrar's office, if you go on the chat and look to speak to the student services professional there, they'll try to work through whatever issue you might be facing to help you out.
Okay, that's great, Sean. And so stay here with me because you have 2 more questions coming your way. So we have a live question, and that question is, Sean, while living in residence this fall, how will food services work? Can we eat on site, or will we have to bring it back to our rooms?
So yeah, you can eat on site. There will be space in the cafeteria, although the spaces will be modified and more limited than they would normally be. So there won't be as much capacity. And in normal times, you would see buffet style food service. You won't see that now. So it'll be more of the grab and go type of food service. So yes, there's the ability to do it. It's not the same as it normally would be. And there are some restrictions.
Okay, and we have another question here for you. You're a popular man here.
Right.
Okay, so this next question is, will students be able to bring a guest into residence, as single rooms may be isolating with the new government policies regarding COVID?
Right. So our guest policy, and you should keep in mind that, as is the case with a lot of the things we're doing, we will reassess and reevaluate as the term goes on. So the way in which we're starting the term is that the modified guest policy is that you can have a guest from your building in your room. So guests from outside your building won't be allowed to begin with. Now, again, we'll have a look at how the term is going, what the provincial regulations are, what we feel is in the best interests of the health and safety of the students and residents, and modify if we feel it's necessary.
Okay, great. And I guess, as you said, we need to modify as necessary. So as things progress, we will be staying in very close contact, of course, with Hamilton Public Health to ensure that we're following all the latest regulations. So that's also extremely important. All right, we have another live question, and this is for Dr. Kim Dye. And so, Kim, I need you to come back here. And so some of the fall course outlines state tentative, and some say proctoring software use to be determined. And when will they be decided? And will that happen before the course starts?
Thank you, Dr. Tai. So I'll answer the first question first. So there are some course outlines that say tentative, and that will be for a number of reasons. Some courses are being taught by sessional instructors, and in fact, we might not today know who that sessional instructor is. Their contract might not have started, so they might not be involved in the course till closer to the end of August. So in some cases, what departments have done is posted a course outline from last year, or a tentative course outline that best represents what is likely to happen in the course. Will that be updated? Absolutely. So when we have an instructor in place, they will provide the details on that course. And that will be provided before the start of the course. That is always the expectation, that the full course outline is provided at the beginning of the course. There are other reasons as well. Our instructors and faculty are humans. They might be away this week on holidays, and so it might just be that they put up something temporarily for your information, but they will be updating that in the course of the next week. So lots of reasons why it might say tentative, but it will be updated before that first day of class. Second question around proctoring software, something that nobody loves to have. If it says that it's to be determined, that could be, again, for a number of reasons. This year, we have more in-person courses, and when there's an in-person component, there is the opportunity to test in person as well. So we're going to see more on-campus testing. We also found very happily last year that many instructors experimented with different types of assessments that didn't require proctoring, and they really enjoyed that testing, and the students appreciated it as well. So they're going to continue to use those tools in the online environment without requiring proctoring. We do have some requirements for proctoring, especially in our professional programs and accredited programs where external bodies are making decisions about how our assessment is done. So we do have the proctoring tool in place for just this one more term, but we are again supporting all of our instructors in making best decisions about when they don't need to use that proctoring software, and will continue to support students in using the software. I will just emphasize that we all learned a lot last year on better ways to test than using online proctoring, and we're absolutely going to be benefiting and responding to that feedback.
Yeah, and I was thinking the same thing, actually, Kim. I think about all the discussions that I've been involved with you and others about what worked, what didn't work, what can we actually learn from this as we move forward. So we will certainly be considering that, and also taking the advice of our instructors. Our instructors have really, some instructors have really utilized these in new and innovative ways, and we want to ensure that we don't lose sight of some of those lessons learned. So thanks very much for that. Okay, we have one last burning question here that has come in live, and Sean, it is for you. And the question is, will the swimming pool be open in fall for activities and recreation?
The answer is yes. The date of opening is still to be determined. So it may not be open on day one of the term, but we will have it open this fall.
Great, thank you. And that was the last question that we have. We are closing in on 58 minutes. And so what I wanted to do is just take this opportunity to wrap up and thank everyone for joining us today and asking your questions. As a reminder, we will be using the questions submitted for this event to inform updates to McMaster's Back to Mac website. Please make sure to check the website frequently throughout the coming weeks for more information. And public health advice continues to evolve, and we are monitoring closely for any developments. I wanted to thank our panel today for their contributions and for their commitment to answering all the questions we received. Dr. Paul O'Byrne, Dr. Kim Dye, Dr. Arig El-Sheba, Dr. Doug Welsh, and our dear Dean of Students, Sean Van Kunit. As well, I wanted to thank all of our staff who made it possible to organize this town hall. It's not easy. There's a lot of logistics that happen behind the scenes. So I did want to take this moment to thank our co-leads, Robin Obermeyer and Tina Depko, and our technical lead, Dan Kim. I also wanted to thank our event facilitators, Monique Beach, Mary Tawes, Christine Yashu, and Megan Bieksa. So thank you very much to all of you. We couldn't have done it without you. Again, I want to reinforce, we're so excited about seeing you on campus. We want to welcome you back to campus. We miss you, and we want you to have a safe and meaningful experience. So we're here to help you. I hope you found today's session helpful. You can come back and watch this video again if there's anything that you aren't clear about. And lastly, please take care of yourself. Have a safe and restful next few weeks, because we look forward to seeing you healthy and happy on campus. So with that, I close. Thanks everyone for joining us, and see you soon.